He kicked his way into Hollywood, played his own twin, did splits between trucks, and made a fortune doing it. Before the world knew him as the Muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude Van Damme was just a kid with a black belt, a dream, and not much else. Born in Belgium, he was already something of a local martial arts prodigy. By the age of 18, he was a national karate champion. But Belgium didn't have a Hollywood, and that's where his sights were set. So he packed up, left Europe behind, and landed in Los Angeles with barely any English, very little money, and no connections. What he did have? A chiseled physique, insane flexibility, and a hunger to make it big. What came next sounds more like a Rocky spin-off than real life. Van Damme worked as a delivery guy, a limo driver, even a carpet layer, anything to survive. He lived out of his car and took showers at the gym. He was broke, but he never stopped training. Every day he'd stretch, shadow box, and practice kicks, hoping someone would finally notice. It wasn't just about getting a movie role. He wanted to change how martial arts were seen on screen. Faster, flashier, more intense. Bruce Lee had lit the spark. Van Damme wanted to light the fuse. The breakthrough came in the most unexpected way. One day, outside a Hollywood restaurant, Van Damme spotted a producer and, instead of handing over a resume, busted out a perfect spinning kick just inches from the guy's face. That bold move turned heads. Not long after, he landed a small role in No Retreat, No Surrender. But the world didn't truly notice him until Bloodsport. What makes his journey so wild is that Van Damme wasn't just trying to get famous. He was trying to revolutionize action movies, the kind of guy who literally high-kicked his way into Hollywood. Most people quit when they hit rock bottom. Van Damme did the splits and waited there for his shot. Van Damme's real breakthrough came in the form of a film that almost didn't get released. Bloodsport was a modestly budgeted martial arts flick, loosely based on the alleged real-life exploits of fighter Frank Dux. Made for around $1.5 million, it wasn't expected to be a hit. Even the studio behind it wasn't fully convinced. They shelved it until Van Damme personally re-edited parts of the film to improve the pacing. That cut was the version that made it to theaters, and when it did, it exploded. Released in 1988, Bloodsport turned into an unexpected box office success and became an instant cult classic among martial arts fans. What made it stand out wasn't just the brutal underground fights or the kumite setting, it was Van Damme himself. His charisma, athleticism, and flexibility were unlike anything audiences had seen at the time. He moved like a dancer and struck like a cobra, with a presence that couldn't be ignored. The slow-motion jump kicks, the signature splits, and the fierce stare into the camera. All of it became part of his brand. The film ended up grossing over $50 million worldwide and made Van Damme a global name almost overnight. It was the moment when Hollywood realized they had a new action star on their hands, someone who didn't just punch and kick. He moved like he was born for the screen. After Bloodsport turned him into a household name, Van Damme's rise was fast and furious. In just a few years, he went from sleeping in his car to commanding million-dollar paychecks. By the early 1990s, his movies were pulling in big numbers. Universal Soldier, Hard Target, Time Cop. That last one, released in 1994, marked the height of his earning power. For Time Cop, Van Damme reportedly took home a staggering $5 million, a number that jumped even higher in the following years. At his absolute peak, he was earning around $8 to $10 million per movie, putting him in the same financial bracket as Schwarzenegger and Stallone, even if the critics weren't always as kind. What's even more surprising is how consistently his movies performed despite their mixed reviews. They weren't just popular in the US, they crushed it in international markets. Van Damme had that rare ability to connect across cultures without needing too many words. His physicality did most of the talking. Studios loved that. He didn't just carry films, he made them profitable. Between 1991 and 1996, he starred in hit after hit, banking tens of millions and becoming one of the most financially successful action stars of that era. When people say action hero, Van Damme was one of the top names that came to mind. And his bank account proved it. By 1991, Van Damme was already a major star, but Double Impact took things to a new level. It wasn't just another martial arts movie, it was the first time he played two characters on screen at once. Not lookalikes or a simple disguise, but actual twin brothers with completely different personalities. One was slick and polished, the other rough and streetwise. And he didn't just act both roles, he owned them. The film gave him the rare chance to show more than just kicks and punches. It let him stretch as a performer, switching between cool and controlled to explosive and reckless, often in the same scene. Behind the scenes, Double Impact was also a clever business move. Van Damme not only starred in it, he co-wrote the script and helped produce it. That meant he got a bigger slice of the profits than he had on previous films. The movie was made on a budget of about $15 million and grossed over $30 million in the US alone, with even more pouring in from international markets and home video. For Van Damme, it was more than a paycheck. It was proof he could carry complex projects and make them work commercially. He wasn't just a martial artist anymore, he was a lead actor who could headline and help shape films from the ground up, and Hollywood took note. After Double Impact, offers started getting bigger, scripts more varied, and the paydays just kept climbing. Long before the movie deals and magazine covers, Van Damme's body was his investment. He didn't just train like a martial artist, he trained like someone with something to prove. Even today, he's known for his insane flexibility and high-flying kicks. But those moves didn't come from genetics alone. During his prime, his daily routine was brutal. We're talking hours of stretching, multiple types of martial arts practice, heavy bag work, strength training, and precise mobility drills, all packed into one day. His goal wasn't just to look good on camera, it was to make every movement sharper, cleaner, and more camera-ready than anyone else in the industry. He started his martial arts journey at age 10 with Shotokan karate, and quickly added ballet, yes, ballet, to improve his balance and coordination. That combination of raw power and graceful movement became his secret weapon. By the time he arrived in Hollywood, he could execute full splits between two chairs, sidekick at head height without warming up, and spin through the air like a gymnast. It became his signature. In fact, he was doing on-screen splits long before they were turned into memes or viral ads. During his blockbuster years, he trained 6 days a week, often mixing weightlifting with combat routines to maintain his lean, muscular frame. He didn't want to bulk up like a bodybuilder. He wanted to move like lightning and hit like a hammer. His regimen wasn't just for show, it was built for performance. Directors didn't need to rely on stunt doubles because Van Damme could deliver the shot himself, in full motion, with perfect technique. That kind of reliability is rare in the action world, and it made him one of the most in-demand stars of the 90s. Even now, fans still talk about his insane flexibility like it's something out of a superhero origin story, and honestly, it kind of is. If there's one move that defined Van Damme's legacy, it's the 360-degree helicopter kick. It wasn't just a trick, it was a cinematic weapon, high, fast, and brutally precise. The kick became his trademark, and every time it showed up on screen, audiences reacted like it was the first time they'd ever seen it. He didn't invent the move, but he turned it into a thing of legend. The timing, the balance, the elevation, it all looked effortless, even though pulling it off required years of training and brutal discipline. What made Van Damme's version different was how clean it looked on camera. No wires, no CGI, no cheating the angle, just raw technique and body control. He'd leap, spin mid-air, and land with the poise of a dancer. Only his landing was usually followed by his opponent dropping to the floor. Directors knew they had something special, so they'd often build entire fight scenes just to set up that one kick. You'd see it in Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Lionheart, and nearly every major Van Damme movie from the late 80s through the 90s. It didn't matter if you were a martial arts fan, or just someone who liked a good action flick. The helicopter kick was unforgettable. Kids tried copying it in backyards, action stars tried mimicking it in other films. It became part of pop culture, showing up in parodies, games, and fight choreography for years after Van Damme's peak. In an era when action scenes were often clunky and overly staged, Van Damme brought something that felt athletic, smooth, and dangerous all at once. His kick wasn't just a move, it was a visual signature that let the audience know exactly who they were watching. Jean-Claude Van Damme didn't just break into movies, he changed the way martial artists were seen in mainstream entertainment. Before him, most action stars were built like tanks or moved stiffly through fight scenes. Van Damme brought something else to the screen: speed, precision, and a sense of style. His background in karate and kickboxing was part of the equation, but what really stood out was how fluidly he could move on camera. At a time when most action choreography relied on quick cuts and body doubles, Van Damme made clean, unedited kicks look effortless. What also set him apart was his ability to blend martial arts with showmanship. He had the instincts of a performer, always finding ways to make a fight scene not just intense but memorable. In one film he'd throw a perfect spinning heel kick. In the next he'd land a knockout while doing a split. He wasn't just fighting opponents, he was putting on a show, and it worked. Studios quickly realized they didn't need elaborate effects or stunt-heavy editing when Van Damme was in front of the camera. All they had to do was roll the film and let him move. By the early 90s, his name was enough to draw global audiences. What's more impressive is how he built that reputation not just on muscles or fighting skills, but on consistency. He wasn't trying to be anyone else. He wasn't imitating Bruce Lee, Stallone, or Schwarzenegger. He had his own rhythm, his own image. That quiet confidence made him stand out. Even today, his name is still used to describe a certain kind of cool, the kind that doesn't shout but still knocks you off your feet. By the mid-90s, Van Damme was at the peak of his career, and that's exactly when Street Fighter came calling. Based on the wildly popular arcade game, the film had a clear goal: turn a hit franchise into a blockbuster movie. And who better to lead it than the man known for kicking enemies into next week? Van Damme was cast as Colonel Guile, the US military hero with a flat-top haircut and a no-nonsense attitude. The studio didn't just want him, they paid big to get him. Reports at the time placed his paycheck at around $8 million, one of the largest of his career. For context, that's the kind of money that only the biggest names in the business were pulling at the time. The budget for Street Fighter was sizable, and a big chunk of it went directly into Van Damme's contract. The studio was betting that his name alone would carry the film across box offices worldwide, and in many ways, it did. Despite mixed reactions from critics, the movie performed well commercially. Fans showed up, especially overseas, and the film ultimately turned a solid profit. Van Damme's portrayal of Guile might have been a stretch from the original game character, but his physical performance delivered what fans expected: powerful kicks, intense stares, and full-throttle action. But behind the scenes, things weren't quite so smooth. Production was rushed, there were script rewrites, scheduling conflicts, and a few moments that tested everyone's patience. Still, Van Damme powered through the role and gave it his all, especially in the action sequences that leaned heavily on his athletic skill. Even if Street Fighter didn't go down in history as a cinematic masterpiece, it solidified one thing: Van Damme could headline massive projects and bring in serious box office numbers. His ability to turn video game characters into live-action heroes helped pave the way for future adaptations, and it proved that at his prime, he was more than just an action star. He was a box office powerhouse. During the mid-90s, Jean-Claude Van Damme wasn't just living large, he was living fast. He was one of the highest-paid action stars on the planet, filming non-stop, attending premieres, giving interviews, and flying from country to country in private jets. But that rapid success came with pressure, and like many stars at the top, Van Damme got pulled into a darker side of the fame game. At one point he admitted to spending up to $10,000 a week on what he called white powder. It wasn't a secret for long, the signs were there: erratic behavior, missed meetings, and tension on set. His addiction started affecting both his personal life and his career. Studios noticed, scripts stopped landing as often, directors became cautious. Even the fans who had admired his discipline and power started wondering what was going on. Movies that should have been hits underperformed, and the man who once did perfect splits between chairs now looked like he was spinning out of control. The shift was fast and public. From Time Cop to Street Fighter, Van Damme's name had guaranteed ticket sales. But by the late 90s, that guarantee was slipping. Still, he didn't vanish. What makes this chapter powerful is that he came out the other side. Van Damme later admitted to struggling with addiction, took time to step back, and slowly rebuilt what he'd lost. He returned not only as an actor but as someone who understood the cost of fame in a way few others could. It added depth to his later roles, not just physically, but emotionally. That wild period might have nearly ended his run, but instead, it became a turning point. One that showed Van Damme could take a hit, and still get back up. In the early 2010s, Sylvester Stallone was bringing action legends back to the screen with The Expendables, a throwback series packed with explosions, one-liners, and muscle. Stallone gathered the biggest names from the golden age of action: Schwarzenegger, Lundgren, Jet Li, and others. Naturally, fans expected Van Damme to show up too, but when the first Expendables movie came out, he was nowhere to be seen. That absence wasn't a scheduling issue. Van Damme turned it down himself. The reason? According to Van Damme, Stallone's original offer didn't give him enough to work with. He was supposed to play a generic tough guy, one of many in a crowded cast, and Van Damme didn't want to show up just for nostalgia's sake. He wanted a role with depth, something with purpose, not just screen time. He wasn't interested in blending into the background or being a sidekick. He said no, even though it meant sitting out a film packed with his longtime peers. But that wasn't the end of the story. Stallone came back with a new script for the Expendables 2, and this time, the role was more compelling. A true villain with a name, Jean Villain. It gave Van Damme a chance to go full bad guy, something he'd rarely done before. He accepted, and the result was one of the most memorable performances in the franchise. His final fight with Stallone became a highlight of the sequel and proved that he still had the intensity, screen presence, and raw power that made him a star in the first place. Saying no to Stallone wasn't an easy choice, but it ended up working in his favor. Instead of being one face among many, Van Damme got to stand out and remind audiences exactly why he earned a spot among the all-time greats. By the time JCVD was released, Jean-Claude Van Damme's career had taken more turns than a spinning back kick. He'd gone from global superstar to a quieter figure in the industry, still working but far from the blockbuster spotlight he once owned. Then came a film that no one quite expected, a small, French-language crime drama where Van Damme didn't play a martial arts hero, but a version of himself. Not the action figure, not the legend, just a flawed, tired man trying to make sense of his life. And in one of the most unforgettable scenes of his career, he sat down, looked into the camera, and broke down crying. Not as a character, as himself. JCVD wasn't a typical action movie. It was raw, self-aware, and brutally honest. The story followed a fictionalized Van Damme caught in the middle of a post office robbery while struggling with a custody battle and fading fame. But the most powerful moment came when the story paused and Van Damme delivered a 6-minute monologue directly to the audience. No fighting, no music, just truth. He talked about fame, mistakes, regrets, and the emotions were so real, so unfiltered that audiences around the world were stunned. It wasn't scripted to feel emotional, it was emotional. Even critics who'd once dismissed him took notice. That scene reminded people that behind the kicks and stunts, Van Damme was a person with layers. The film became a quiet hit in film festivals and online circles. It didn't make huge money, but it made something even rarer: respect. Suddenly the world saw him not just as an action figure, but as a real actor. JCVD didn't just mark a comeback, it showed a completely new side of him, one that proved he could do more than fight on screen. He could be vulnerable, human, and that hit just as hard. Just when it seemed like Jean-Claude Van Damme had stepped out of the mainstream spotlight for good, a truck commercial brought him roaring back, with one perfectly executed split. In 2013, Volvo Trucks released a short ad that featured Van Damme standing between two reversing vehicles, slowly gliding apart as he performed a full split between them. No green screen, no body double. Just Van Damme, two moving trucks, and a setting sun. The result? One of the most iconic and viral commercials of the decade. The ad was created to demonstrate the stability and precision of Volvo's dynamic steering system, but let's be honest, it was Van Damme's presence that made it unforgettable. Dressed in a calm expression, arms crossed, and his signature control on full display, he delivered a short voiceover about inner peace and balance before performing the stunt with mind-blowing precision. Within hours of release, the video exploded online. It was shared by millions, parodied by comedians and brands alike, and earned awards across the ad world. But more importantly, it reminded people of what made Van Damme a star in the first place. Even after decades in the business, he could still do what most athletes wouldn't dare attempt. He didn't need CGI or a flashy action scene to prove it. A quiet road and two trucks were enough. The success of the ad led to renewed interest in his work, new interviews and appearances that introduced him to a younger generation who had only heard about his legendary moves from their parents or YouTube clips. The Volvo spot wasn't just a viral hit, it was a mic drop moment that said, Van Damme never really left, he was just waiting for the right moment to strike again. At the height of his fame, Van Damme lived exactly the way you'd expect one of the world's top action stars to live. Big. He bought a stunning waterfront mansion in Marina del Rey, California, complete with floor-to-ceiling windows, a rooftop deck, and its own private dock. This was no modest home, it was a $6 million luxury retreat that screamed success. And that was just one of his properties. He also owned homes in Belgium and even spent time living in Hong Kong during filming seasons, choosing locations that matched his high-profile lifestyle. His garage was just as impressive. Van Damme had a known love for exotic cars, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, all parked alongside custom motorcycles. These weren't rentals for the camera, he actually drove them. Interviews from the time mention his favorite, a black Ferrari Testarossa, which he used to speed along the California coast during his off days. He once said cars and houses were a reward for the years of hard work and sacrifice, but fame comes at a cost. The spotlight never dims completely, and living large meant living publicly. Paparazzi, constant attention, and the pressure to keep the image up made privacy harder to protect. For a while, he embraced the attention, then slowly pulled away from it. Jean-Claude Van Damme's journey from a young martial artist in Brussels to a global action star is nothing short of remarkable. Today, his estimated net worth stands at $30 million, reflecting a career that has spanned decades and included numerous box office hits. In recent years, Van Damme has continued to work in the film industry, taking on roles that showcase his enduring physical prowess and charisma. He has also embraced the digital age, engaging with fans through social media platforms and participating in various brand endorsements. These ventures have not only kept him in the public eye, but have also contributed to his financial stability. Currently, Van Damme resides primarily in Hong Kong, where he owns an apartment on the 75th floor of a luxury building. This residence offers him a panoramic view of the city and a comfortable base from which to manage his ongoing projects. Despite the challenges and changes in the entertainment industry, Van Damme has demonstrated resilience and adaptability, securing his place as a lasting figure in action cinema. That's about it. What is your favorite Van Damme movie? Write in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.